Are US citizens at risk under Trump? We've talked about green card holders. We talked about visa holders worried about their status. How about US citizens, especially the naturalized ones? If you got your citizenship through naturalization, you better watch this video all the way until the end. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Immigration Channel. In this video, we'll talk about whether US citizens, specifically those who got their citizenship through naturalization, are at risk. We talked about green card holders and all the concerns they have now traveling, coming to the United States, being detained, visa holders. But what about US citizens? Definitely talks about denaturalization, heightened securities, raids are not making US citizens, those naturalized ones, very comfortable. And in this video, I want to break it down and tell you what are the risks, if there are any, specifically if you got your citizenship through naturalization. So first of all, if you are a US citizen in the United States and you got your citizenship in the process of naturalization, you should be safe. And it's been the case for decades. But during the first Trump administration, he brought up an executive order that would allow essentially the government to denaturalize US citizens for different offenses, not just being a Nazi or being a terrorist. There are things that could happen to any of you guys that became US citizens through naturalization. And under the current Trump administration, the talks about denaturalization are back. So before we talk about exactly how it's going to work, if those things are going to be implemented, but first let's understand what is denaturalization and how it actually works. Denaturalization is a process where the government can strip down somebody's citizenship, essentially revoke it completely. But it is possible if they bring the denaturalization process back into life. In the past, denaturalization was used by the government to take away citizenship for people that actually lied about their citizenship. For example, if they hid a very serious criminal past, something that wasn't even found during the process of applying for a green card. The other way was if they discovered that somebody was, for example, a Nazi war criminal, people that were able to hide their identity, were able to come to the United States, even though they were part of the Nazi regime, those people could lose their citizenship through the denaturalization process. Again, it was very rare, but it was something in the law. It was something that was possible to invoke if needed. But if you remember, under Trump's first administration, the denaturalization process got a lot of attention. In fact, they even created a special executive order to implement it, not just for Nazi war criminals or terrorists, but make it a little bit more broad. In 2018, the Trump administration revived a program called Janus. And in the Operation Janus, they were targeting US citizens that obtained their citizenship by fraud and misrepresentation. In fact, the Department of Homeland Security set up a special office to handle denaturalization cases. In fact, by the end of 2020, it's reported that over a few hundred cases were filed, although we don't have the exact reports how many citizens will actually denaturalize. If you remember, back in the day, the whole denaturalization campaign was called by critics as a fear tactic to scare people more than actually make it a reality. Yes, maybe 100 people denaturalized per year is not a big number, but it is something that could be expanded if the government decides to take it very seriously. In today's 2025 Trump administration, the talks about denaturalization are coming back. In fact, the Trump administration said quite a few times there are many, many citizens they believe fell through the cracks and should have never received their citizenship. In fact, even if you look at the recent ICE raids, quite a few US citizens were picked up and detained because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Still, those US citizens that happened to be in the vicinity of undocumented citizens were also picked up and detained for a few days. Eventually, they were released, but it just tells you that no one is safe these days. But how bad is the situation? And can denaturalization become a thing? In the most recent executive order called Protecting the US from Foreign Terrorists, there is a mention for the process of denaturalization being implemented specifically for those US citizens that obtained their certificate of citizenship by fraud or misrepresentation. Now, this doesn't have to be criminal records. This could be a simple case as somebody who married somebody and paid them money to get a green card, and that person somehow eventually confessed, and they found out years later that that person got a green card by fraud. under new denaturalization rules, if they become reality, that person could lose their citizenship. So, what I'm trying to say is that the denaturalization process is designed to go back in time and find those people that got their citizenship by fraud and misrepresentation. The fact is how likely it is that denaturalization policies can be implemented. Because even if an executive order will be issued, it will be challenged in courts because the threshold is too broad. It's going to be very difficult to determine how people got their green cards, when they got their green cards, was it fraud or wasn't it fraud, who's going to be in charge of doing that. I think right now the rhetoric of talking about denaturalization is more of a scare tactic versus real reality. Even if naturalization will be implemented, the government will have to be very, very careful as to who and how they'll target US citizens. Because remember, once you become a US citizen, you are protected under our constitution, and it's virtually impossible to take away your citizenship. Remember, guys, any major legal changes like that, just like the birthright citizenship. You remember a few weeks ago, I made videos talking about the birthright citizenship, Trump trying to prevent undocumented immigrants having babies in the United States from those babies becoming US citizens. Yes, he's pushing hard for that. And yes, there's an executive order, but it has been challenged in court and now it's on hold. I can guarantee you that if they will issue an executive order specifically focusing on denaturalizing US citizens, it will also be challenging in court. It will also go through severe legal battles. Maybe even if it passes, it will go all the way to the Supreme Court, and this battle can last for years. So something like this happening is not very likely to be a reality. But the bottom line is, guys, when you apply for your green card, you make sure that everything makes sense. And if you haven't had an interview during your green card process, you will be interviewed pretty hard during your citizenship application. Right now, what they're doing is making application for citizenship quite more difficult. They're checking more people, they're conducting interviews, sometimes they're doing home visits. But the bottom line is that if you will get your citizenship at the end of the day under this administration, most likely you should be good to go and they're not going to be revisiting it. However, people that got their citizenship years ago, and if the government decides to implement denaturalization, maybe there's a small risk of some cases being revisited if they have the evidence to find out something wasn't legal in that way the person got the green card. But even if that happens, remember, guys, there are legal procedures, there are courts. People will be able to fight their cases and try to save their citizenship if it will go all the way to the point where they're going to try to take your citizenship. So again, not trying to spread any fear here. We're just passing the information. We know that it is in the executive order that was issued in late January, and nothing has been implemented yet. But remember, all these executive orders that he issued in January, he's going through them one by one. And eventually, we'll get to the point where they might discuss denaturalization. So it's something good for you to know. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos, and also give us a big like so YouTube will be able to show this video to more people just like you. As always, if you need help with your immigration matters, send me a text 619-483-4549 or go to www.immigrationsap.com, leave your details, and one of our team members will contact you ASAP. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.